All right, let's dive in today, shall we? We're going to be talking about something that's been getting a lot of buzz lately, polyamorous relationships. And, we've got this awesome blog post, Polyamory Relationship, Love Beyond Monogamy. It's from a blog called Claim the Day. And let me tell you, it's already got me thinking about love in some new ways.
I bet.
So,
really interesting stuff.
Yeah, it is. So, what even is polyamory? This blog post starts by breaking down the word itself, right? Poly, meaning many, and amor, love.
Right.
So multiple loves, right?
Multiple loves.
But hold on a sec, because before we go any further, we got to be super clear. This is not about cheating.
No, absolutely not.
This is not
but
about...
that's a very important distinction to make.
Yeah.
Consent is absolutely key with polyamory.
Right.
Everyone involved has to be aware of all the relationships and be okay with the setup. And that's totally different from infidelity, where you've got secrecy and betrayal.
Right. It's all about honesty, transparency, and respect.
Yeah.
So this blog post also does a great job of explaining how polyamory is different from, open relationships.
Okay.
And that can be a little confusing for people sometimes, right?
Right.
So open relationships are often more about the physical side, having, sexual experiences outside of the main relationship, whereas polyamory is really about genuine emotional and romantic connections with more than one person.
Right. You're forming real bonds, genuine relationships.
Yeah, and that's a big difference.
Absolutely. It's about the depth of those connections, not just, like you said, the physical aspect.
So we're talking about multiple relationships, but it's not just like a free-for-all.
Right.
Is there any sort of structure to this?
Well, there actually is.
Okay.
There's quite a bit of variety in how polyamorous relationships work, and the blog post outlines a few different types. So
Okay, so there's different, styles.
Yeah, and I think if we go through a few examples, you'll see how unique each one can be.
All right, let's do it. Let's jump into some of these examples. So the blog post mentions something called hierarchical polyamory. What does that look like?
Okay, so in hierarchical polyamory, you have one main relationship that is considered the priority. Think of it like this. A couple lives together, shares finances, maybe they're even raising kids together.
Okay.
That's their primary relationship.
Right.
And then one of them also have another partner they see, say, once a week.
Okay.
So that second relationship would be considered secondary.
Interesting. So it's not necessarily about loving one person more than the other.
Right.
It's more about, the practical side of things, right? How they prioritize their relationships in their daily lives.
Exactly. You got it. Primary doesn't automatically mean more loved. A lot of times it just boils down to logistics and, the level of commitment involved.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what about non-hierarchical polyamory? I saw that in blog posts too.
Okay, yeah. Non-hierarchical polyamory is kind of the opposite of hierarchical.
Okay.
In this case, all the relationships are seen as equally important. There's no primary partner, so to speak. So you might have a network of partners, and each relationship is cherished for its own unique qualities.
That's cool. So it really challenges the idea that you have to have one most important person in your life.
It does.
It's like saying all your loves are equally important.
Yeah, absolutely. And for many people, that resonates a lot because it recognizes that different relationships can fulfill different needs and bring different kinds of joy, and none of those are inherently, better than others.
That's a really interesting concept, and I can see how it would appeal to some people.
Yeah.
Now, this next one, I'm really intrigued by this. Solo polyamory.
Oh.
Tell me about solo polyamory.
So solo polyamory is all about individual independence.
Okay.
So imagine someone who really values their own space and their own way of life, but they also want those fulfilling romantic connections with multiple people.
Got it.
So they might have several partners, but they choose not to live with any of them.
Right. So it's like polyamory, but with an extra emphasis on the solo part.
Exactly.
That sounds like it takes a certain kind of personality.
For sure, definitely.
Someone who's really self-sufficient and enjoys their own independence.
Right, and it really challenges those societal expectations that we need a primary partner to be complete.
Yeah.
It's really about honoring your own individual needs and desires within the context of, having multiple relationships.
It's like redefining what a fulfilling relationship can look like.
Okay, so we've got hierarchical, non-hierarchical, solo. What else is out there?
Well, there's also polyfidelity.
Okay.
And this one is interesting because it involves a closed group of 3 or more people who are all committed exclusively to each other.
Oh, wow.
So they're romantically and non-sexually involved, but only with those within that group.
Okay.
No one else is brought in.
So unlike open polyamory, polyfidelity is more about creating a closed circle of committed partners, like a self-contained, I think they call it a polycule sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like taking that idea of commitment from monogamy, but expanding it to include more people. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So it's exclusive, but with more than 2 people involved. Gotcha.
Right.
What else? Anything else in this blog post?
Let's see. Oh, yeah, they also talk about kitchen table polyamory.
Kitchen table polyamory.
Okay.
What's that all about?
So this style emphasizes a real sense of community.
Okay.
Think of it as a group of partners and metamors. And by the way, metamor just means your partner's other partner.
Okay.
So all these partners and metamors are all cool with hanging out, socializing together.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, like having family dinners, going on trips, that sort of thing.
I love that term, kitchen table polyamory. It really does paint a picture of everyone just getting along and feeling like a part of something bigger.
Yeah, it really does. It emphasizes communication, shared experiences, and that feeling of belonging within this larger network of relationships.
Wow, so many different styles and approaches. It's pretty incredible how much variety there is in how people structure their polyamorous relationships.
Yeah, for sure.
But one thing that seems to come up again and again, no matter what the structure is this idea of communication.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You can't get around that one.
Right.
Communication in polyamory is so important. It's really essential.
It sounds like communication in polyamory is on a whole different level.
It kind of is. Think about it. With multiple partners, potentially a lot more emotions involved.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So open and honest communication is the only way to make it work. The blog post really hammers that point home.
Okay, all ears.
Okay, good.
Let's dive into that communication piece a bit more. The blog post, it breaks it down into 3 main elements. Transparency, emotional management, and time management.
Yes.
And each one of those seems pretty crucial, right?
Absolutely. Each one plays a huge role in helping these relationships thrive.
All right, let's start with transparency.
Okay.
What does that look like in the context of polyamory?
So transparency is all about being upfront and honest about your desires, needs, boundaries, and just what's going on in your life. It's about creating that safe space where everyone can be honest with each other without judgment.
So no secrets, no hiding things.
Nope.
Just lay it all out there on the table.
Exactly.
That makes sense to me.
Good.
Okay, now what about emotional management? That sounds like it could be a real challenge in polyamory.
It can be, for sure. It can be.
More so than in a, more traditional monogamous relationship.
Yeah, because you've got more people, more feelings, more potential for, complexities and complications.
Right.
But the thing is, this blog post, it acknowledges that feelings like jealousy and insecurity are totally normal.
Yeah, they're human emotions.
Exactly. They happen.
We all feel them sometimes.
Right. They happen even in the most secure relationships.
Okay.
So polyamory isn't about pretending those feelings don't exist.
Right.
It's about being able to recognize them, talk about them openly, and work through them in a healthy way.
So it's more about acknowledging them, not suppressing them.
Exactly. Acknowledge, communicate, and then figure out how to work through them together.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That sounds like it takes a lot of self-awareness and maturity.
It does. It really does. But polyamory kind of forces you to develop those skills, which I think is a good thing.
You're kind of pushed to grow in that area.
Right. It's about learning to communicate your feelings effectively and working with your partners to find solutions that meet everyone's needs.
So instead of letting those tough emotions like jealousy just fester and turn into resentment,
right,
you're actually encouraged to address them head on.
Yeah, absolutely. Face them head on. And you know what? Sometimes that can actually lead to a deeper intimacy and connection with your partner.
Oh, that's interesting. So by facing the challenge, you actually strengthen the relationship.
You can, absolutely.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about time management? How does that come into play with polyamory?
Okay, so think about it this way. You're juggling multiple relationships.
Yeah.
Each with its own needs and wants, its own rhythm.
Right. So it requires a lot of planning and organization.
Because?
You have to be mindful and intentional with your time to make sure that each partner feels valued and that no one's needs are being neglected.
I can only imagine how easy it would be to feel pulled in a million directions.
Right.
If you're trying to nurture all these different relationships.
Exactly. It's a lot to balance, for sure.
What does the blog post suggest for managing time effectively in this kind of situation?
So they emphasize the importance of checking in with each partner regularly.
Okay.
scheduling that dedicated time for each relationship.
So it's about being proactive, making sure everyone feels prioritized,
Absolutely.
and just being upfront about your availability and commitments, right?
Yes, absolutely. Transparency is key,
Yeah,
remember.
of course.
It's all about finding that balance that works for everyone.
So it seems like communication in polyamory is really this multifaceted thing, right? Transparency, emotional management, time management.
It is.
It sounds like it takes a lot of work and conscious effort to make it work. It does. There's no doubt about it.
But what about the rewards? Like, why would someone choose to put in all that effort to make this kind of relationship work?
Well, there are definitely some really amazing potential rewards.
Okay, tell me about it.
For starters, you have the possibility of experiencing different kinds of love and connection with different people.
Yeah, like a richer, deeper experience of love overall.
Exactly. Imagine the depth and the variety that can bring to your life.
That's a good point.
It's pretty awesome to think about.
Yeah, it is. This blog post also talks about having a wider and more diverse support system, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's like having a custom-built support team for all aspects of your life, right?
That's a great way to put it. You've got different people you can turn to for different kinds of support.
Right, because everyone has their own strengths.
Exactly. One partner might be amazing for practical advice, another might be incredible at providing emotional comfort, and another might be your go-to person for adventure and excitement.
So it's like you're drawing on the strengths of each relationship to create a really well-rounded support network.
Exactly. And that's pretty powerful.
It is. I can
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah.
The blog post also highlights the personal growth that can come from navigating this whole world of polyamory.
Right.
It's almost like a crash course in self-awareness, communication, and emotional intelligence.
It is.
You're constantly challenged to grow in ways you probably wouldn't have anticipated.
Right. You're learning to communicate your needs more effectively, you're setting healthy boundaries, and you're learning to work through those difficult emotions in a constructive way.
And those are skills that can benefit you in all areas of your life, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Not just your romantic relationships.
Yeah, that makes sense. It sounds like polyamory could really push you to become the best version of yourself.
It's true. It's very empowering in that way.
Okay, so lots of potential benefits, but let's be realistic here. It's not all sunshine and roses, right?
Of course not. No relationship style's perfect.
Right.
Polyamory has its downsides too.
So let's talk about some of those challenges.
Okay.
What are some things that people should be prepared to face if they're considering this kind of relationship?
Well, probably the biggest one, and this might not come as a surprise, is jealousy.
Right, we kind of touched on that before,
We did.
the emotional management piece.
Even in the most secure and communicative polyamorous relationships, jealousy can still pop up.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, even in monogamous relationships, jealousy can be tough to deal with.
for sure.
So I can only imagine how much more complex it gets when you're dealing with multiple partners.
Right. But polyamory actually asks us to rethink how we view jealousy.
Okay.
Instead of seeing it as like a sign of failure
Right.
or a reason to just shut down,
Right.
it encourages us to see it as an opportunity for growth and deeper understanding.
So it's like shifting your perspective on it.
Exactly. Instead of saying, oh, no, I'm feeling jealous, this is bad, you say, okay, I'm feeling jealous. What can I learn from this? What needs to be addressed?
That's a much more constructive approach.
It is.
So you're using that jealousy as like a catalyst for communication and personal growth.
Yeah, exactly. It's about shifting from that mindset of scarcity,
Okay.
where you think there's not enough love to go around.
Right, like love is a limited resource.
Right, to a mindset of abundance.
Where you can actually celebrate the fact that your partner has the capacity to love multiple people, including you.
Right. It's a big shift, but a powerful one.
Yeah, that's a really different way of thinking about it. But I imagine it takes a lot of work to get to that point.
It does, for sure.
Yeah.
It does.
So jealousy, that's one challenge. What else?
Well, time management is another big one.
Right, we talked about that a little bit.
We did, but it's worth emphasizing again.
Okay.
Because juggling multiple relationships can be incredibly demanding on your time and energy.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's really easy to get overwhelmed if you're not careful.
So those time management skills we talked about earlier are super important.
Absolutely crucial.
It's about being really intentional with your time, setting clear boundaries, and communicating your needs and limitations to your partners.
You've got to be on top of your schedule, and you've got to be honest with yourself and your partners about how much you can realistically handle.
So it's not just about the romantic love. It's also about, like, logistics and being practical.
It is. There's a lot of practical stuff that goes into making polyamory work.
That's a good point. So we've got jealousy and time constraints. Anything else?
Well, social stigma can also be a big challenge.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Polyamory is still not widely accepted or understood.
Especially in certain parts of society, right?
Right, exactly.
Conservative areas, maybe.
Yeah, and so individuals in polyamorous relationships may face judgment or
Okay.
discrimination from family, friends, or even colleagues.
That's got to be tough,
It can be.
especially if you're not out about your relationships.
Right, exactly.
And it makes sense, though, right? I mean, we live in a society that's largely built around the idea of monogamy as the norm.
Exactly. Monogamy is seen as the default, the expected way to do relationships.
Right. And so anything that deviates from that norm can be met with resistance.
Exactly. So it's something to be prepared for.
So if you're considering polyamory, you might have to be prepared to face some disapproval or even outright rejection from people in your life.
You might, and that takes courage.
It does. It's not easy to go against the grain like that.
It's not, but for some people, it's worth it.
Okay, so we've talked about the external challenges like social stigma.
Right.
What about the internal dynamics, like within the polyamorous relationships themselves?
Ah, yes. Well, that's a whole other layer, isn't it? Because with more people involved, you're going to have more potential for complex interactions, miscommunications, hurt feelings.
Yeah, it's like the potential for drama just increases exponentially.
It can. It definitely can. And so it really requires a certain level of emotional intelligence and communication savvy to navigate those dynamics in a healthy way.
So it's not just about managing your own emotions. It's also about understanding and navigating the emotions of multiple other people.
Right. It's like you're constantly trying to find that equilibrium.
And that can be exhausting, I bet.
It can be, especially if you're new to this whole world of polyamory.
So being prepared for conflict
Mm-hmm.
and having those healthy strategies for working through disagreements, that's super important.
Essential.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've explored the different types of polyamory, the importance of communication, the benefits, the challenges.
Right. It's a lot to take in.
It's clear that this is a complex and nuanced relationship style that requires, like, a lot of work and dedication.
It does.
But I think the big question on everyone's mind is this right for me?
Mm-hmm.
How do I know if this is something I should explore further?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. It is. And that's something I think this blog post does a great job of addressing.
It does. It does.
It doesn't just tell you about polyamory. It encourages you to think about it deeply.
Mm-hmm.
And it poses some really thought-provoking questions that can help you figure out whether it aligns with, your own values and your emotional capacity and your lifestyle.
Yeah, like, are you really cut out for this?
Right. What are some of those questions it asks?
Okay, well, one of the first ones is, could you be genuinely happy for your partner if they had other fulfilling relationships?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It is.
For a lot of people, that would be really hard
It would.
because it challenges those ingrained ideas we have about possessiveness and exclusivity.
For sure. It asks us to confront those insecurities.
Yeah.
And really examine whether we're capable of love that goes beyond those traditional boundaries of monogamy.
That's deep.
It is deep, yeah.
Okay, what other questions are in there?
Well, they also dig into communication skills.
Okay.
They ask things like, are you a skilled communicator, especially when it comes to difficult emotions?
Oh, yeah.
Can you express your needs clearly and respectfully? Right.
Are you a good listener? Like, can you truly hear and understand your partner's perspectives, even when they're different from your own? That's so important in any relationship, really.
It is, but especially in polyamorous relationships.
Right, because you're dealing with the complexities of multiple relationships.
Exactly. Miscommunication or a lack of emotional intelligence can really create problems in polyamorous relationships.
Yeah, I can see that.
So if you struggle with communication, polyamory might not be the best fit for you.
Right. At least not without some serious work on those skills.
Exactly.
Exactly. What else does this blog post encourage us to think about?
Okay, well, another big one is, are you comfortable challenging societal norms?
Ooh, yeah.
Are you okay with potentially facing some disapproval?
Right.
Because let's face it, polyamory is still seen as unconventional by a lot of people.
It is. And not everyone is comfortable being different or going against the grain of what their family or community expects.
True.
It takes a certain kind of confidence to do that.
It does. It does.
So that's definitely something to consider carefully.
For sure.
All right. What else? What else should we be thinking about?
Okay, last but not least, the blog post asks, are you able to manage your time and energy effectively to nurture multiple relationships?
Oh, yeah. That circles back to what we were talking about before,
It does.
about time management and...
Making sure everyone feels loved and supported.
Right, right. because it's not just about wanting to be in these multiple relationships. It's about actually having the capacity to manage them.
Exactly. It's about being realistic about what you can handle.
Yeah.
And making sure you're not spreading yourself too thin.
Wow. This is a lot to think about. It's not just about like diving into polyamory head first. It's about really taking the time to consider whether it's the right fit for you.
Absolutely. It's a decision that shouldn't be taken lightly.
And even if it's not the right fit,
Mm-hmm.
just going through that process of self-reflection like this blog post encourages,
Right.
I think that could be really valuable.
It can be. It can be.
No matter what kind of relationship you're looking for.
For sure.
Because it helps you get clear on your values and your needs.
Exactly. And sometimes it can even lead you to a deeper appreciation for just the complexity of love and relationships in general.
That's a good point. All right. Well, we've covered a lot of ground here in this first part of our deep dive into polyamorous relationships.
Yeah.
And we're just getting started.
I know, right? There's still so much more to explore.
There is. So stay tuned, because in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to be talking about
Yes, we're going to be discussing.
the impact of societal norms and expectations on our understanding of love and relationships.
It's going to be good.
I think it'll be really fascinating.
It will.
And I'm excited to dig into it with you.
Me too.
So don't go anywhere.
Stay with us. You know, it's so interesting how we grow up with all these messages about what a real relationship is supposed to look like.
Right.
And for most people, that means monogamy, right? One partner for life till death do us part.
It's like the default setting for relationships in our culture.
It really is. Yeah, it's just so ingrained.
It is.
But what if we challenge that default? Like, what if we step outside that box and consider that maybe there are other ways of loving and connecting that are just as valid?
That's what I love about this blog post.
Yeah.
It really encourages us to question those assumptions
Yeah.
that we've just kind of taken for granted.
Absolutely. Like, for example, is love a finite resource?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Is there only so much love to go around? Do we only have a limited amount to give, so we have to choose just one person to receive it all?
I think a lot of people operate under that assumption without even realizing it.
I think so too.
And it leads to a lot of jealousy and possessiveness.
It does.
Because you're always worried about that love running out or being given to someone else.
Exactly. But what if we reframe it? What if we see love as something that can actually expand and grow? Something that can be shared and celebrated?
That's like a total mindset shift.
It is. It is.
From scarcity to abundance.
Exactly.
When it comes to love.
Yes, and polyamory really embraces that abundance mindset.
Yeah.
It's like saying, yes, I can love deeply and fully, and that love doesn't get smaller or weaker when I open my heart to other people.
It's like that saying, a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle.
Oh, I love that.
Right.
That's a beautiful analogy
It is.
for the expansive nature of love.
And it challenges us to really rethink those societal messages that tell us that love is this zero-sum game.
Yeah, that if one person wins, someone else has to lose.
Right, exactly.
But that's not necessarily true.
So if we can start to question those assumptions, we might start to see polyamory not as a threat to traditional relationships,
Right.
but as just a different expression of love, one with its own unique set of challenges and rewards.
Exactly. It's not about saying one is better than the other. It's about recognizing that there are multiple paths to love and connection.
And what works for one person or one couple might not work for another.
Yeah, for sure. One size doesn't fit all when it comes to relationships.
That's the great point.
Yeah.
Whether you're monogamous, polyamorous, or somewhere in between, what matters most is that you're creating a dynamic that feels authentic and fulfilling for you and your partner or partners.
I completely agree.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the practical and emotional aspects of polyamory.
Mm-hmm.
But there's another dimension that I think is worth exploring,
Okay.
and that's the spiritual or philosophical aspect.
What do you mean by that?
Well, for some people, polyamory isn't just a relationship style.
Oh.
It's like a way of life,
Oh, interesting.
a philosophy that informs how they approach love and relationships and even their own personal growth.
So it goes beyond just the structure of their relationships.
Yeah.
It's about a deeper understanding of love itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
Some polyamorous folks see their relationships as a path to self-discovery and spiritual evolution.
Right.
They believe that navigating the complexities of multiple relationships can help them become more self-aware, more compassionate, more emotionally intelligent.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about how polyamory can really push you to grow and evolve as a person.
Exactly.
And for some, that growth extends into the spiritual realm.
It's like polyamory becomes a tool for personal transformation.
Yeah, it.
And it's important to note that this spiritual or philosophical aspect of polyamory isn't tied to any specific religion or belief system.
Right.
It's more about a personal approach to love and relationships,
Right.
one that emphasizes conscious choice, personal responsibility, and a deep respect for everyone's autonomy.
So it's not about following a set of rules or dogmas.
No.
It's about finding what resonates with you on a deeper level and creating a relationship structure that reflects your values.
Yeah, that aligns with your vision for personal growth.
Absolutely.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
It has.
We've explored polyamory from so many different angles.
We-
From the nitty-gritty details of communication and time management to the deeper philosophical and spiritual implications.
It's a wide-ranging topic.
It is.
For sure.
But before we wrap up,
Okay.
I want to circle back to this blog post from Claim the Day
I'm glad you brought that up.
because it's been such a valuable resource
Yeah.
for our conversation.
It has.
And I think it does such a great job of presenting polyamory in this really nuanced and accessible way.
It does, yeah.
It goes beyond just those stereotypes and misconceptions that we often hear about. And it offers this really thoughtful and insightful exploration of this complex relationship style.
And you can tell that the author really understands polyamory.
Right.
Not just the theory of it,
Yeah.
but the actual lived experiences of people who practice it.
Yeah, I get that sense too.
And I really appreciate how the blog post encourages self-reflection.
Me too.
It doesn't tell you what to think about polyamory. It just asks you to examine your own beliefs and values and see if this is something that aligns with your own personal journey.
It's all about figuring out what's right for you
Exactly.
in your own unique situation.
Yeah.
So polyamory, it's not for everyone.
Right.
And it's definitely not something you should just jump into lightly.
No, definitely not.
It requires a lot of self-awareness, emotional maturity, and a willingness to challenge those societal norms that we were talking about earlier.
For sure. It takes a certain kind of person to make it work.
But for those who are drawn to it and who are willing to put in the work,
Right.
it can be an incredibly rewarding and fulfilling way to experience love and connection.
I think that's a great way to sum it up.
Polyamory is a path, not a destination.
I like that.
It's a journey of self-discovery, growth, and expanding our understanding of what love can be.
Beautifully said.
And even if polyamory isn't something you personally choose to pursue, I think there's a lot we can all learn from it. It challenges us to question our assumptions about relationships, to be more intentional about how we love, and to create a world where different forms of love and connection are celebrated and respected.
I couldn't agree more.
Well said. So much to unpack here.
I'm curious.
It really feels like this whole conversation about polyamory is pushing us to rethink how we view love and relationships in general.
Yeah, it's definitely a catalyst for some broader conversations.
It is. And what I really appreciate about this blog post from Claim the Day is that it doesn't shy away from those tougher questions.
Right.
It encourages a journey of self-discovery, not just about polyamory, but about love itself.
Yeah, it's giving you the tools to define love on your own terms, not just accepting what society tells you love should be.
Exactly. And I think that's such an important message for our listener today,
Yeah.
Whether or not polyamory is something that speaks to you personally. I think this exploration has hopefully sparked some new ways of thinking about your own relationship values and what you're looking for.
It's about recognizing that there's no one right way to love. What matters most is finding a path that feels authentic and fulfilling to you.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, by being open to all these different ways of loving, we can create a world that's more compassionate and accepting of all kinds of relationships.
That's a great point.
It's about moving beyond judgment.
Absolutely.
And embracing all those different ways that humans connect with each other.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of polyamorous relationships.
Okay.
We've covered so much.
They have.
But this is really just the beginning.
Right. It's a starting point.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And for our listeners, if you're feeling inspired and want to learn more, I highly recommend checking out the Claim the Day blog.
It's a great resource.
It is. It's a great place to start if you're curious about polyamory or other alternative relationship styles.
And remember, knowledge is power, right?
It is.
The more we understand about different ways of loving and relating to each other, the better equipped we are to create those meaningful and fulfilling relationships in our own lives.
So true. Thanks for joining us on this journey, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
And until next time, stay curious and keep those hearts open.
See ya!